we go. Jake and Josh are here to analyze the game they love for the team they love. This is another Dolphins Podcast. Here's your host, Jake Mendel and Josh Houtz.
We are preparing for our last Sunday without NFL football, and we could not do it without welcoming back Marek Brave. Thank you all for turning into another edition of another Dolphins Podcast. Gentlemen, the Dolphins have an official 53-man roster. How we feeling?
We feel all right. It's not as beefy as we thought maybe it would be when we thought we were going to add a former All-Pro running back yesterday, at this mythical trade deadline that the Colts were imposing on the Miami Dolphins. But then after today, when the news came out that Colts owner Jim Irsay was asking for the moon, the sun, the stars, and Jalen Waddle, of all players, I think we understand why this deal didn't get done. Am I right, fellas?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, no one wants to give up Jalen Waddle. I think Chris Grier even said, anybody can call, and I'm telling him Waddle's not available. So, yeah, he was laughing. So, I mean, credit to Irsay, right, for shooting for the moon, I guess. But it was Waddle and a player, too, on top of that. I mean, that's Jalen Waddle. You're asking for a top 10 wide receiver for a guy that you've already said that, isn't worth the money. And, the NFL and the league won't even remember if he rode off into the sunset. So,
quite the trade negotiation tactic.
God, and that's why I always go back to the idea. Like Stephen Ross, he says some stupid stuff, but he has never, okay, yeah, he lost the first round pick. I'd actually say this is probably as close as he's gotten to pulling an Irsay, but just the lack of foresight to come out and say, we aren't paying this guy. He doesn't deserve a contract. And then say he's worth Jalen Waddle. That is absolutely bananas to me. And it's a very strange situation. We got Pat McAfee trying to explain how Jalen Waddle is worth it in that deal after he spent months, also saying that, Jonathan Taylor running back so matter. It's very interesting just to kind of go day by day, just to see this pendulum swing. And it's not hard to kind of discover why we're where we're at.
Yeah, and to add Jonathan Taylor, that would have been awesome. But then you run into the conundrum of paying another player big money at a position where the Dolphins haven't traditionally, at least in the last few years, invested heavily. And that's the running back position. So instead, you're rolling with Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., Chris Brooks, an undrafted rookie free agent who has made the roster, and then Devon Achane. He's got his little shoulder issue, but he's still here. And then Savon Ahmed. So actually 5 running backs on the roster right now, including Alec Ingold. He'll make 6th as a fullback. And Dolphins are sitting pretty at the running back position, at least in my eyes. Would it have been cool to add Jonathan Taylor? Absolutely. But he's not here. He's a cult for the foreseeable future. I don't think he's happy about it if you look at some of the likes he's been putting out there on the app formerly known as Twitter. But we'll see. I don't know if we're done with Jonathan Taylor as Miami Dolphins fans. We might revisit this maybe mid-season, depending on how things are going. Or you might revisit this next year in the offseason ahead of the 2024 season when Jonathan Taylor could potentially be a free agent.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to give Chris credit, and I guess Mike McDaniel as well, for kind of sticking to their guns. I mean, they've called about all these running backs, right? I mean, I have written down here, I was going to talk about the running backs. So I don't even know if you guys want me just to jump right into that. But the fact that Jonathan Taylor, it was a nice thing. They kudos to Chris Grier for at least swinging for the fences, but we'll revisit this thing. I think Indianapolis Colts should have capitalized when they had the chance because he's pissed off. His trade value is probably not going to be any better than it was. So, I don't know what the Colts are doing, but that's Jim Irsay, right?
Josh, let's get right into it then. You want to tease it? We're going to get right into it. So we're under the impression that the Dolphins have established their running back group. I want to shout out Myles Gaskin. He got another job. He's with the Minnesota Vikings. I picked him up right away on fantasy. He is not going to start over Alexander Mattison, but I will tell you right now, I do think there's a shot for Myles Gaskin we'll be sitting here like week 13 and be like, Myles Gaskin starting? I'm telling you right now, that is definitely something that can happen. One of the things we wanted to go through today, gentlemen, was some position groups that kind of raised our eyebrow a little bit now that we have a full 53-man roster. Even when there's 90 players, you get an idea of, all right, we know 80% of who's going to be cut. But that 20%, there is a huge embrace debate opportunity. So, Joshua, how about you get us started?
Yeah, maybe it's just because I'm just filled with copium, right now, just sitting here, just trying to find the good in all this. But I feel like what we saw of this running back unit throughout preseason was pretty good. And I don't want to sit here and say the Dolphins don't need a Jonathan Taylor. They don't need a Dalvin Cook, a Saquon Barkley, a Josh Jacobs, Jingleheimer Smith, all the different guys that they called about. I'm not saying that at all. But I think this running back unit, combined has some talented pieces. You look, Raheem Mostert had his career best 891 yards last season. Jeff Wilson was up there too when you combine his totals from San Francisco and with Miami. And then, they drafted Devon A-Chain High. He's a guy that we all were excited about. And then there's Salvin Ahmed. I mean, he looks like, honestly, maybe arguably the best back in this backfield, at least if preseason was any, if preseason was any testament to that. So, I would have loved Jonathan Taylor, if I get off our phone and we sit here and post this podcast and the tray goes down, I'm going to do a Willy Wonka heel click, but I don't think it's the end of the world. And when you have all those weapons on the outside, like a Waddle, Tyreek Hill, the different pieces, that are continued to build into this offense, I don't think that you need that elite running back. What you need is just to commit to it. And I think that was one of the things that, we talked about before, Jake, throughout the preseason. You saw Mike McDaniel commit to that run game. Third in the NFL, 165 yards per game. So commit to the run game, give all these guys an opportunity. And then I got to mention Chris Brooks. I mean, we want to talk about some undrafted acorns throughout this podcast. This guy has run hard all preseason, and honestly, he earned that roster spot. If or not the Dolphins, decide maybe to cut him and try to stash him on the practice squad for someone else, we'll see how that falls. But as of now, he's on the roster, and he deserved it because he was running hard, and he's that Thor, he's that Thunder, Jake, that I always talk about.
I love it. I love it. Marek, I want to ask you, I think the issue with the Dolphins last year, they were a bottom 5 rushing team, and it had nothing to do with the quality of the carries. I think both Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert were ranked top 15 in the NFL in terms of yards per carry. What we see now is them just dedicating more time to the run. Last year we had Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill being more than 50% of the offense. Odds are that's going to be kind of close again this year, as it should be. But how do you see this playing out? Because I want to start at the end and then we'll work our way up. But Chris Brooks, you think about the Dolphins keeping 5 running backs. How on earth does this guy see the field?
I like Chris Brooks. I think Chris Brooks, he's your power back. I think he's your short yardage guy. I think he could be used in goal line situations. I wouldn't be surprised, and this could depend on the health of some of the other guys. I think they like Jeff Wilson in kind of that power role too. I think he's more of a hybrid and give you a little bit of both, a little bit of that speed, agility, and then also that power. And it could come down to some injuries to some of those top guys, and we'll knock on wood and hope that doesn't happen. But Chris Brooks has looked good this preseason. Like I said, he could be more of that goal line situation type guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he saw himself with 5 touchdowns at the end of this season. And we're all sitting here going, all right, the Dolphins did it again. They found themselves an undrafted free agent acorn, so to speak. So I think you could see him in that role. We'll see what his pass protection is like out there. But I guess that's kind of the silver lining in this Jonathan Taylor deal, is that now you get to use a hybrid of or a stable of running backs, I should say, instead of just kind of dedicating, every carry, every touch to one dude and then having kind of like a change of pace guy come in every now and again. You get to see the Dolphins rotate guys in and out and give the opposing defenses different looks. And I like what Chris Brooks brings to the room, and I'll be excited when he takes the field this season.
Josh, I want to ask you too, because Marek brings up a great point. There's an obvious skill set with someone like Chris Brooks. My concern though is, does he really have an opportunity to succeed and develop a role if he's that third down short yardage guy, if he's that red zone guy? That means the opposing defenses are going to know what he's doing when he's on the field. Do you think he has that skill set where maybe that first play could be a fake and him still be involved in the play, or still have an opportunity to have a role? Because I think that's where my concern is. I do see like a Lusaka play role right away, but I mean, I don't know if that's worth keeping a pseudo second fullback, I guess.
I do, and the fact that you're sitting here saying that, though, you would hope that Mike McDaniel, is thinking the same thing. And, okay, so the defense coordinator thinks we're going to run this ball right here on this, 4th and 1 from the goal line. We're going to obviously run a play action or whatnot. And you have already seen Chris Brooks, showing that he can catch a football a bit, right, and make some plays in that aspect. So I hesitated to tweet it out, but I was going to joke that, for so many years, all we wanted was Dan Marino to have a run game, and that's probably what would have pushed him to a Super Bowl. He could have any of these running backs on his roster, those rosters that were competing back then, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., Chris Brooks, Salvin Ahmed, and they probably would have gave Dan Marino a ring. So I think we can sit here and all be bummed and Eeyore around the house. That's what I've been doing all day, just kind of sulking and being all bummed out that we didn't get Jonathan Taylor. But at the end of the day, the Dolphins kept those draft picks, kept that cap space to hopefully use on a Christian Wilkins or whatnot. And now we're going to see what this stable can do, because it's the NFL nowadays, man. 2023, you need a stable of running backs, and the Dolphins got a stable and a bunch of guys that can do a bunch of different things.
The one thing about Salvon Ahmed that stood out right away was the big plays, right? I think he had a 40-something yard run during the preseason. And ripping off plays like that is how you develop a greater role. So, Marek, I want to ask you, and I want us to really refine this take here, because I'm going to ride with Josh on this. Would it be crazy if we're sitting here week 16 and all of a sudden Salvon Ahmed is the lead back for the Dolphins, just because maybe he's just a bit younger, a bit fresher. He knows the system, that burst is going to be there. I mean, Raheem Mostert was awesome at the end of the year last year, but I wonder if they're going to kind of play it by ear in terms of, all right, early in the season, someone might get worn down, and we start kind of rotating a little bit that way.
Certainly possible. I mean, Salvon Ahmed, he had limited touches last year, but when he did touch the ball, he did something with it. He has had some electric plays in a Miami Dolphins uniform, and he's had some electric plays recently in a Dolphins uniform. He has had himself a really good preseason for the Miami Dolphins. He beat out Myles Gaskin for one of those last roster spots, at least in the running back room, and they're keeping him here for a reason. So like you said, he's younger, fresher legs. The older guys, they tend to get banged up. It's a long season. So if you're telling me week 16, Salvon Ahmed is the leading rusher for the Miami Dolphins, at least for week 16, I can buy that. I can buy that for sure.
It's just, he seems like that fun wild card, doesn't he, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, we joked he kind of looked like Barry Sanders a little bit, right? Well, no, I guess I said Devon Achane, and then he got hurt the next day. So I'm going to stop calling people Barry Sanders. But he had some wiggle to him. And, I mean, it's funny how some people at camp, we're getting him and Devon Achane confused, right? Their speeds are so much. I don't want to say Devon Achane's that next level, but he kind of is that next gear. And the fact that they were getting these two guys confused is a testament to how good Salvon Ahmed has become. I mean, it seems like every year he does get better. So it won't surprise me at all if at some point this season he's that fantasy darling that, you start in DFS one week and win millions of dollars, Scrooge McDuck style.
So much happens in an 18-week regular season. What would you say the percent chance is that Salvon Ahmed touches the ball more often than Devon Achane? I'd go as far to say 60-40. I think Salvon Ahmed might touch the ball more than Achane this year.
69, yeah.
Nice. Oh, you're Salvon Ahmed too? You think he'll out-touch Achane?
I think so. I'm starting to get worried. You hear all the preseason hype about Achane, but he's already banged up a little bit. I mean, he's going to be that return man. I mean, they really don't have a reason to utilize him except in those packages that are made for him. And Salvon Ahmed looks so damn good. I mean, I'll say 69 just to be funny. I don't know though. I'd like to see Devon Achane earn them reps.
You would like to see Achane kind of take over here. It's his rookie year. The Dolphins have him under a cheap contract for the next 4 seasons. Clearly, Mike McDaniel is a big fan of Achane. At least he was during his college years, because he was super jazzed up about the pick. He wanted them to take him in the 2nd round, but Chris Grier said, "Hey, chill out on that. We'll get him in the 3rd." They did, and McDaniel was visibly excited for that. Now, Achane's a little banged up, but in addition to him being a little banged up, did anyone check his yards per carry numbers in the preseason?
Wasn't it like 2? I think it might have been 2.
I think it's 3, like 3.3, somewhere around there. Like, that's not great. That's not very good. And when you look at some of those reps, he wasn't very patient on those carries. He kind of ran into bodies a little bit quicker than you'd want him to. If he was just a little more patient, he took an extra half second and waited for the hole to open up. There were some running lanes for Devon Achane. So that's classic rookie struggles for running backs in the NFL. They're excited. They want to make things happen. And he's just got to get a little more patient in that backfield. So I think I'm still riding with Devon Achane if it's between Achane and Ahmed. And I think Achane will have more touches than Ahmed by the end of the year, just because Mike McDaniel really wants this pick to work out.
I just wanted to say the way, Achane was running at times, it almost seemed like when you play Madden and you take that handoff and you immediately hold in the speed burst button and just kind of run into the back of the line or the defender. That's kind of what he was doing.
Yeah, that's actually a great analogy there. That's pretty much exactly what it looked like.
Sticking with the offensive side of the football, guys, one position that really stood out to me, and I don't know if it's just I like hearing myself speak or what, but, I did the roster breakdown with Kat, and I looked at the position groups, and I thought, there'd be a legitimate chance that for one reason or another, the Dolphins would keep 2 tight ends. Things might change as guys are going on IR today, but I'm curious to get your guys' thought because, I mean, Durham Smythe is that guy, right? I've seen him get clobbered play after play, and he still just gets up, lines back up. He'll be that solidified blocking tight end, maybe average 9 yards per catch. But then I think it's undrafted free agent Julian Hill, who is also made the roster as tight end. Not really someone you can plug in and trust opening day or something like that. So what are your guys' thoughts there?
Yeah, that was actually a little surprising to me. We later found out Eric Saubert's got himself an injury. He's going on IR. Chris Grier said today that he doesn't think it's season ending for Eric Saubert, but he wasn't 100% sure. He knew Keon Crossan wasn't going to play for the team this year. Apparently a freak injury he suffered at practice yesterday. So, there's that injury bug striking the defensive back room once again. But, Eric Saubert's a little banged up right now, so he doesn't make the team. Tyler Kroft gets re-signed. So now Tyler Kroft is back on the team. But I'm intrigued with Julian Hill. I really am. He's a big guy. I believe the Dolphins have him listed at 6'4", 251. So this isn't your tight end, your wide receiver to tight end convert like Elijah Higgins was supposed to be before, he went to the Cardinals yesterday. And like Tanner Connor is kind of becoming as well, this wide receiver to tight end convert. Julian Hill, he actually played quarterback in high school. I just was doing a little research on him before we started recording. So maybe some trick plays coming for the Dolphins with Julian Hill at the QB spot. That could be interesting. But he's a big dude, 6'4", 251, blocks well, plays aggressive, and you need that in a McDaniel offense, in a Shanahan-style run system. You need tight ends who block. Julian Hill can fit that role. And I'll be interested to see what his snap count is for the Dolphins this season and see if he can contribute as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, I feel like it speaks volumes about what they think about him, right? The fact that they've kept, that number of tight ends on the roster. I mean, I do think that he will win some of those reps, and you hope that he can be an asset in the run game as well. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but sitting there watching Steelers highlights, you see Darnell Washington open up these huge holes, man, and he's just like this anchor, this sixth offensive lineman. So you want that in this offense. I think one thing that's kind of been debunked by now, though, and I'm got egg on my face, but we kept thinking, they need a tight end for this offense to work. They need a tight end, a specific, Kittle, so to speak. I don't know that they do, right? We kind of seem like Mike McDaniel's going to figure it out as he goes. So they feel confident in Durham Smythe because he can do a little bit of everything, adequately. And then Julian Hill's going to get some of those reps. And you mentioned Tyler Kroft coming back. So would like to see someone emerge there. But the fact that Julian Hill made the 53-man roster over a guy like Elijah Higgins, that's speaks volumes about what they think about him. And you saw a little bit of it throughout the preseason. This
might sound a little overreactish, but I could genuinely believe if the fact Julian Hill played quarterback in high school was the difference maker here. We've spent the entire offseason talking about, all right, rookie tight ends, slow your roll. They have to learn a lot in terms of being a blocker, catching the football. But a quarterback has to have a general knowledge of the offense as a whole. So I'm just curious if maybe having him approach the game from a different aspect for a few years maybe help them pick it up a little quicker. And all of a sudden he does see that pathway to, see some sort of snaps as a rookie. Marek, what would those snaps be, do you think? Is it simply, the two tight end sets in the red zone, and then you get the all alone tight end in the red zone? Is that kind of where he'd begin, you feel?
Yeah, I think that's where you'd see him start out, especially with a veteran like Durham Smythe leading the tight end room. He's been a Dolphin for a long while, and the Dolphins thought enough of him to re-sign him to an extension while letting Mike Gesicki walk and sign with the New England Patriots. So they certainly like Durham Smythe, and I still expect him to lead the Dolphins tight ends in snaps. But I think you're right, Jake. I think in two tight end sets, you could see Julian Hill get out there. And then, these wild formations that Mike McDaniel likes to do. Could you see Julian Hill line up in the backfield, And maybe that's just a decoy to keep somebody down in the box a little bit closer. And then Julian Hill, with the big body he's got and his aggressiveness as a blocker, he could just stay in to block on a pass play here. But who knows? He could be, the Dolphins love doing those tight end QB sneaks. Maybe Julian Hill with his big frame could be the new tight end sneak specialist. Who knows? But it seems like he's a little bit of a Swiss Army knife, can do a little bit of everything kind of well. And we'll see if his role grows as the season moves on.
Yeah, and let's not forget, I mean, they're still churning the roster. I mean, they could still, poach a tight end off someone's practice squad, or some vet gets released that, they've had familiarity with in the previous years. So there's always that option. Then Alec Ingold, a guy that, can kind of sneak in there a little bit. So I'm intrigued to see what Mike McDaniel has up his sleeves. I mean, they got to have some type of plan, right? I mean, Durham Smythe, Julian Hill, Tyler Croft. I mean, unit looks much different than it did last season, but maybe that's a good thing.
Speaking to that, I mean, there's no featured player in that tight end room. Do you guys think our opinion of Durham Smythe, good or bad, will change by the end of the season?
I don't think so. You think you're gonna feel better about him by the end of the year, Josh?
You feel like he'll be worthy. Like another way to word this, you feel like by the end of the year we'll be arguing he deserves a higher Madden grade than what he's got.
Oh yeah,
Kind of what.
Yeah, because I think he's gonna show an element where he's gonna be that safety blanket in the middle, and Tua needs that, completion over the middle. And I think, I already kind of feel like he's. He goes out there and busts his ass. He can run block. He can do a little bit of everything. So, yeah, I think he'll, raise my respect for him a little bit more. But I'm probably just being optimistic right now. I was Eoring all day, so I'm just trying to find the good in life right now.
Yeah, I don't think my opinion on Smythe is going to change. I don't expect him to have a breakout season. I don't think McDaniel's offense really cares to get the ball to the tight end all too much. And I already feel like Durham Smythe is pretty all right. He's pretty all right. He's not great. He's not terrible. He's pretty all right. And I think by the end of you think he's going to be
all right. The next level of all right.
He's pretty darn all right. But yeah, I think Durham Smythe is a good football player. I'm happy he's on the Miami Dolphins. I don't think I'll ever feel ecstatic that, oh my God, he's finally broken out and we have a new Jimmy Graham on our hands here. I think he is what he is. He's a little blue collar type player. And I think that's how I'll feel later this year too.
Didn't your son watch Madden Sim though, where he had like 5 touchdowns or something?
I definitely thought about bringing that up, but yeah, he did watch some YouTube simulation, and by midway through the third quarter, I looked up and Durham Smythe had 11 receptions, and I was like, "This is not real."
So with that though, I think it's important to know neither you think we'll feel worse about Durham Smythe by the end of the year.
No.
No, I don't know what he could do unless like a critical fumble that costs us a playoffs. Then it's like, yo, damn you,
penalties.
Yeah,
he was never
that's not who he is though, right? I mean, I don't know. You're getting
he's
me
never
scared,
been like
Jake.
the greatest pass blocker either. He's been all right. If he can reach
all right,
better than Gesicki.
If he can reach the all right, awesome. If he reaches all right, then the Dolphins are going Super Bowl. That changes everything.
He's in the Pro Bowl then. If it's all right.
Marek, what position group you got for us?
Jake, you know what I'm about to talk about right now. It's the same thing
meaty
I've been
men.
talking about. I love big, meaty men, boys. Pause. It's the same position I've been talking about every time I've come on with you guys these last few weeks. I am so concerned about this interior defensive line. I really am. You look at the roster that the Dolphins put out yesterday, the initial 50-man or 53-man roster. For defensive line, they have the starters, Zach Sealer, Christian Wilkins, and Raekwon Davis. They have Emmanuel Ogbah listed on the defensive line, not as an edge or a linebacker. And then they got your guy, Jake Brandon Peely. No Bronson, no Twyman, no whoever the hell else. I know they re-signed. I think it was Hand. I think they re-signed Deshaun Hand, is practice squad or something like that
Would
today.
you feel better with them? Is that what you're saying? You feel better with them? They would ease your...
I just... What's going on, right? Where's the depth here, man? Where's the depth? And I know they're not done. And you guys know they're not done. And you know exactly what names I'm going to bring up right now. And I feel like Jake's going to reach through his computer screen and slap me across the face. But God damn it, go get me a Linval Joseph. Go get me an Akeem Hicks. And I swear to God, it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull all my hair out by the time we head to Los Angeles to play the Chargers week 1. But you need a quality veteran in this room to help spell some of these guys. Where's our John Jenkins? You know what I mean? Where's he at? He's missing. He's not here right now. And I know we're excited about what Brandon Peely can do for this team, but I thought he had an up and down preseason. I thought there were moments where he looked pretty decent, and then I thought there were other moments where he was getting knocked back off the ball and rushing lanes were opening up directly where he was supposed to be. And you know what? He's an undrafted rookie free agent. That's okay. Those things are going to happen. So it's on the coaches right now to coach him up and get him where he needs to be. I know he was a a player in college that had high expectations. And because of injury, he never met those expectations. So the Dolphins are hoping that now that he's fully healed, they could find a diamond in the rough and turn him into what he was supposed to turn into when he was at USC in college. I hope that happens, but I'm not 100% sure that it does. So just in case that it doesn't, I would like a little more insurance along the interior of this defensive line. And, you got this whole Christian Wilkins deal right now. He's back with the team. He's practicing. He's all in for week 1 and beyond, at least for this season. But what do we do with him after this season? So you hope Peely develops into a guy that if, again, knock on wood, God forbid, Christian Wilkins is no longer a member of the Miami Dolphins in 2024, maybe Peely develops into an average, adequate player that you can plug in that interior defensive line spot. But until then, I'd like to see us go out there, sign one of those veterans, and I'll feel a lot better about this defensive run-stopping game, because that's how teams attack a Vic Fangio-style defense. They want to be able to run the ball. And to counteract that, you need big bodies in the middle. And I just don't know if the Dolphins have enough pieces right now, and I'd like to see them add one more. So, again, the guys. It's Linval Joseph. It's Akeem Hicks. Bring me one. Bring me both if you must. But I'm looking for the Dolphins to make a move there after they get some of these guys on the pup list, and Ramsey goes and this guy goes and that guy goes and a couple roster spots open up. I think that's when you might see a bigger name veteran defensive lineman come in, and the Dolphins cleared some cap space in preparation for this John Taylor trade that never went down. So, hey, cool. Now we got an extra $3 or $4 million. We can throw one of those guys. So I'm all in on that.
Yeah, I close my eyes. You almost probably sound like Vic Fangio when he's going up to talk to Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier, trying to pitch that they need to go out and do this. I mean, I see where you're coming from. They absolutely need some depth there, but I am excited about the pieces they have. I mean, are they going to sit here and try to get their money's worth out of all of these guys, right? You got Zach Cesar, you just paid a new deal too. Christian Wilkins making that money and wants to get paid big. I mean, you want to see him play his best football. Raekwon Davis in a contract year is going to step up. So, I'm interested to see what they get out of these guys, right? I mean, how tough they are, and then you can sit here and see how these defenses attack them. So, I don't know, man. That's definitely a weakness, and the Dolphins need to bring in some depth for sure.
Yeah, no, I was big Brandon Peely guy going into training camp, but that Jaguars game, I mean,
scared me a little bit.
The entire defensive core or coaching staff were begging somebody to make a play. So make us keep you on the roster. And I think Peely just start to finish had the strongest camp, but I have to agree. I think they're not done adding here. The interesting and I think the monkey wrench is Emmanuel Ogbah. It's just trying to figure out how to get these guys all on the field at the same time. In a perfect world, you'd love to take that Ogbah contract, snap it in half, and then there's two guys right there, two middle class, two John Jenkins, basically. I think they could sign one of those vets that you mentioned, Marek, but it'd be kind of like the Eagles did it, right? I think they signed Ndamukong Suh and Lynn. It might have been Joe. It was one of the two.
Yeah, it was Linval Joseph. Yep.
They signed him a little later than everyone kind of thought. It was after a couple injuries, and then they didn't play that much. They were like a 15 to 20% snap guys. I think Miami might make a move before that. I think they might try to find a way to put Peely on the practice squad. I don't know what the rules are if you begin the season on the active roster or what, but I do wonder if they'll try to find a second or third year guy, someone, again, relatively cheap who can just kind of come in and play 30% of snaps when you're surrounded by a bunch of studs. Man, Peely was out there with a bunch of studs, and he still struggled despite the Jags really telegraphing what they were doing. So I think just kind of finding one of those guys on the waiver wire might be the early choice. And then, hey, we've made it through 7 weeks. Every team's starting to get banged up a little bit. Let's bring in some of these older guys who can, the battery might not be as long, but they'll be able to kind of spark everything.
Yeah, and I think it was Kyle Krabs on the Locked On Dolphins podcast. He was mentioning there was a nose tackle type that was released from the Arizona Cardinals, and he was hoping the Dolphins might make a claim there. Dolphins didn't claim anybody, and I'm not sure that this guy is still available. I want to say his name was Richard Lawrence, something like that. I may have that name wrong, but he was high on him, and he's a little bit of a younger guy. But yeah, somebody like that, a big body dude, in the Raekwon Davis mold that you can just plug in there and say, you don't have to be a superstar. You just have to plant your big ass right here in the middle of the line and don't let anybody get past you. Hold a couple guys, right here with you. Let's let David Long do his thing. Let's let Jerome Baker do his thing. Come down, make a tackle, shoot a gap, something like that. So you might not need to get one of those bigger name guys, like you said, Jake. You may be able to sniff around and get a couple guys that, maybe none of us have ever heard of, but could end up being some quality depth for the Dolphins this year.
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks for bringing up Emmanuel Ogbah, Jake. I was sitting there trying to, I was mumbling my words around, trying to remember what the hell I wanted to say. Emmanuel Ogbah, playing more inside. I think, this could indicate that might be a plan for them. So getting their money's worth out of that unit up front and hoping that they can stop this run because, again, like Marek said, that's the way these offenses are going to attack a Vic Fangio defense. So it's time to buckle up, right? We're getting closer to the season.
The simplest way to describe Emmanuel Ogbah is that 4-3 defensive end. I think just that pure pass rusher. He's actually a great run defender too, but someone who can set that edge. I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts because something we heard about Ogbah this offseason is he's actually been dropping back in coverage a little, being one of those outside linebackers who can roam, maybe play those little zone defense. We've also heard, right, he can line up inside, not a nose tackle, but he can be one of those guys in the trenches making things a mess. Which do you think he does more in 2023? Drop out and back in coverage, be one of those pure outside linebackers, or just kind of force or be that depth in the trenches? Which way do you think they kind of try to lean with him?
It scares me a little bit to think about Emmanuel Ogbah at this stage in his career trying to learn how to drop back into coverage. Now,
it's got to be the flat. That's it.
And he's been great at getting his hands up and swatting some balls, so maybe he could be a great pass defender. We don't know, but I hope you don't see a lot of Emmanuel Ogbah in coverage this year. I'd much rather see him playing in that 3-4 front as an edge guy there, trying to get to the quarterback. He was never a major sack guy, but he always, was kind of up there in that 8, 9, 10 sack range, at least for the, his first couple of years with the Dolphins there. And if he can contribute numbers like that or similar production to that, at least on a snap-by-snap basis, and Jalen Phillips, progresses and Bradley Chubb is healthy and fits well in that Fangio defense. And then you can add, maybe some more pass rush production from Christian Wilkins, who I think right now knows that if he wants to get paid $25 million a year, he needs to sack the quarterback a little bit more. And I'm not going to bet against a guy like Christian Wilkins when he sets his mind to something. So, you could see a pretty ferocious front here if all of these guys step up their games a little bit. So I think I'd rather see Emmanuel Ogbah in the middle of that defense trying to get to the quarterback from the interior a little bit more, collapse those pockets.
Yeah, he does have that Mutombo to him, but I'd much rather see him inside than dropping back in coverage. Please none of that dropping back in coverage stuff.
Maybe he's a big body. You mentioned he's actually great at batting down passes. Maybe he's just going to be standing in a throwing lane. You're
just waving his hands.
Yeah,
I am Groot.
I think that might actually work. I'm ready to see it a play or two. It's interesting, right? We go from this blitz happy Josh Boyer defense, and all of a sudden I feel like we're talking about sacks more than ever. Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, and then Emmanuel Ogbah, Christian Wilkins, two guys who can get to the quarterback from the inside. I'm curious to see how this really unfolds with this group. The one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about before we wrapped up here. How do we feel about Miami's undrafted free agents? As the team went and signed these bigger price tag guys, you're going to need to rely on some acorn and some late round draft picks. Obviously, we heard that the Dolphins didn't want either of their late round draft picks who have been signed elsewhere, but the team decided to keep 3 undrafted free agents on the roster, at least for now. Brandon Peely, running back Chris Brooks, and gentlemen, I'm going to need your help because I'm spacing on the
Julian
third.
Hill. Julian Hill,
tight end.
Yep. It's just so many names going through my head over the last couple of days. It's so hard to keep up. So, guys, when you see that list, who's the first one that you kind of think, all right, if I can talk myself into this for about 5 minutes, I could see them having a real impact. Kader Kohu last year, Nick Needham a few years before that.
I think for me, and this is not to diminish the talents of this player, but I'm looking at the other players in this position room, and that's Julian Hill, tight end for me, because I think he has the cleanest path to playing time. There's only 2 other guys, I guess 3 other guys if you include Tanner Conner, but what is Mike McDaniel's infatuation with Tanner Conner? Why does this guy keep ending up on the Dolphins, year after year here? We were all surprised when he made the 53 last year, and I'm surprised that he's sticking around this year too, but I digress. You got Durham Smythe, you got Tyler Kroft, and you got Julian Hill. Essentially, you got 3 guys in that tight end room. Tyler Kroft is a whatever, I don't care kind of guy. Durham Smythe, we already talked about. He's pretty all right. Julian Hill, if he can excel in any one thing, blocking, pass catching, whatever it may be, he could find himself on the field more often than not. And for those reasons, his path to playing time being a little bit easier than some of the other guys you mentioned, I think my undrafted free agent acorn to watch this year is Julian Hill, tight end out of Campbell. By the way, do you guys know Campbell's mascot?
I hope it's a can of soup.
Soup
It probably
can.
isn't.
The Camels. They are the Campbell Camels. How
Soup
cool
would
is
have been
that?
much better. I think I'd go soup over camel.
Yeah, I don't know if
When was
that's
the last time you were scared of a camel?
I don't know. They spit, correct?
They spit. Yeah, they
big,
spit
big
right in your
spitters.
face. Yeah.
Yeah. I just remember being a kid and going to the gas station and they had the Joe Cool, Joe Camel posters on the wall, and he did look so cool. He really did. That's probably why I started smoking when I was 17. I don't smoke anymore. I haven't smoked a cigarette in 17 years, but yeah, the Campbell Camels. How about that?
It's Wednesday and we're talking about camels. It's Tump Day and we're talking about camels. It's perfect.
Ah, good. Very
Lucky
nice.
you.
Yeah. So no, I don't smoke anymore, but hopefully Julian Hill will be smoking linebackers and catching balls for the Miami Dolphins this year. What do you think?
It starts with one catch, right? For someone like Julian Hill, you make that 130-yard reception and everyone's going to be begging for more. Seeing that Mike McDaniel did find ways. All right, Tanner Connor, show us what you got. Braylon Sanders, show us what you got. Channing Tindall, show us what you got. Injuries or not, there are going to be these opportunities for someone like Julian Hill to make a statement for himself. And man, it's not going to be a lot of them. I'll tell you that right now, just with the volume that the Dolphins have on offense, he's not going to get many of those opportunities. But I do think tight end all alone in the end zone, he makes a lot of sense as one of those guys who can surprise you right away.
Former tight end. This name, I don't know why. This name just probably because it starts with the same syllable, but I just keep thinking about Julius Thomas. You guys remember Julius Thomas? Yeah, I believe he had a cup of coffee in Miami.
Legend, yeah.
But he did his damage in Denver with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning throwing him the football. Julius Thomas, 6'5", 256. Julian Hill, 6'4", 251. That's pretty close. That's it. I'm calling it right now. Julian Hill. He's going to be a future Pro Bowler for the Dolphins. He'll get cut tomorrow.
So then what you're saying is that makes two of Peyton Manning, right? Is that what you're getting at there?
Yeah. It's slightly more mobile.
Yeah, a little bit. Doesn't have that forehead.
Julius Thomas, he was a late round draft pick too. I think that's like a perfect example of just really understanding what someone's skill set is and letting them kind of do their own thing. Because I think one of the issues was once he arrived in Miami and even late in his career with Denver, it just wasn't his type of offense. It was like trying to play, Gesicki and Mike McDaniel's offense. It just did not work right. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see. Do we think they're done? Could they add someone at tight end in maybe the next 2 weeks that would compete against Julian Hill? Because this guy is already, he's got a lot of good momentum going his way. Would someone easily just skip over him if they were to sign just, someone off the street, someone cut by another team?
Sure. I mean, he's an undrafted free agent for a reason, and I don't think they already let 2 of their own draft picks go. I don't think they'd be too afraid to let an undrafted guy go. A tight end that intrigued me when he got cut that I thought maybe the Dolphins might be interested in bringing in, and I don't think he went claimed, or I don't think he was claimed, was Dan Arnold. When I saw Dan Arnold got cut, I was like, that seems like a guy that could come in and be an adequate football player for the Miami Dolphins. So I don't know, just throwing a name out there. If anybody, has any other names, I'd be happy to hear it. But I thought Dan Arnold, I remember Dan Arnold doing some decent things for a couple different teams.
Dan Arnold's the needle mover. I thought that we were going to sign that dude from Denver, but I didn't know, wouldn't have any idea.
Oh God.
Albert, that's it.
Yeah.
Albert, oh hell, I have to pronounce his name now.
Yeah. Oh shit, he's probably still better than everybody else in the tight end.
I want to talk about the trenches for a minute here and Brandon Peely, because I think there is a shot he could stick right away. But not only as fans, but the team itself, every day before the season just feels like it's getting a little bit longer and longer. Do you feel like the Miami Dolphins coaching staff, everything we've heard about, especially Vic Fangio saying we need more depth, we need more help. Can Miami sit there and stomach having Peely as a backup for so long? so long being 10 days before the season begins? Or are they going to keep looking at that depth chart, look at that Jaguars game where they allowed 5 yards per carry and just not being able to stomach it and must go get someone else before the season begins?
It's really tough. It's really tough. I personally would go get another player. I mean, you guys know that I've talked about it ad nauseum. I really would do that. It's just you just want to be stout on all fronts. In that Vic Fangio defense, you got to be able to stop the run to make everything else work. And that's where they want to attack them. So I'd go get somebody else. I thought Peely was a little up and down. I understand them wanting to develop. I understand he's got the tools and the traits that they're looking for in a player at that position. I'm just not super comfortable with him yet. And if the Dolphins are in win now mode, if they're in all in mode, then you got to go get me some players that can help me win right now. And I just don't know if Brandon Peely is that guy.
Jonathan Taylor would have been that guy.
He would have,
but
they tried so much.
But no, I think they'll probably bring in a veteran defensive tackle, and I do think he can push Peely. But how this defense all comes together, it's going to have a lot to do with how the Dolphins' success is this season.
Last guy to talk about real quick, Chris Brooks, trying to find a way for him to get on the field. Gentlemen, how do you think it happens? Is it simply just waiting for injuries, or is Mike McDaniel, the mad scientist, already one step ahead of us? I mentioned it. They had no issue getting Tanner Connor involved. They had no issue getting these other guys involved. Is Chris Brooks going to be – I'll start here. Each week you set 46 suit up for each game, 47 now with that third quarterback. How many of the first 6 weeks is Chris Brooks inactive for?
That's tough because
I'll be the guy.
You think he's not all right. So right now, Jeff Wilson's banged up. Actually, the only healthy running backs at practice today were Raheem Mostert and Chris Brooks. That's it. Devon Achane's got the shoulder. I don't know what's going on with Savon Ahmed. Maybe, I don't know. I didn't see that reported anywhere, so I'm not going to speculate. You got Chris Brooks at 6'1", 223 pounds. That's a big dude for a running back, especially. He's absolutely the biggest running back on Miami's roster. He's bigger than Alec Ingold, the dang fullback. So he is that power back right now. And I think he's shifty enough to be more than just a power back. I don't think he's a dude that's just going to hit the hole as hard as he can and hope that good things happen. He's had a good preseason, and it's against, second team and third teams. So because of injury, I'm going to say Chris Brooks will be active for one game. One out of six. And you know what? For an undrafted rookie free agent, that's okay.
No, that would be awesome. And I'm actually kind of surprised with the hype you just gave to say one. That's like the perfect balance of, hey, I love my football team, but I'm also realistic. Who would ever thought?
Well, I mean, Dolphins are okay at running back. They got some good names. They don't have the world beater. They don't have the all-star. But Mike McDaniel loves Raheem Mostert. He loves Jeff Wilson. He loves Devon Achane. And Salvon Ahmed has done anything and everything he can to be a good soldier and excel when the ball's been given to him. So it's a good running back room. So it's going to be a tough room to crack. But I think Chris Brooks has shown enough to be rostered right now. And as long as he sticks on the 53, I think you'll see him active for at least a game.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I mean, this running back room is loaded. I hope that he can at least earn some of those reps, right? But I do think, in some of those short yardage situations, this is going to become our Lusaka Polite, where we're trying to 4th and 1, we're giving the ball to big Chris Brooks. He's just running dudes over.
I don't know, man. I wonder if Christian Wilkins gets his bigger contract by being the fullback. He already did it a couple times. He has a touchdown. I could see him being that guy. Josh, I want you to ignore everything Marek and I said and give me a number. First 6 weeks, how many games is he active?
Wise threw out 3 at first, but then I realized as he was talking that's not really realistic. So let's go 2 games out of the first 6, and that's going to be because someone's injured or because they expect to run the ball. Maybe is there snow? There's no snow in the first 6 weeks, is there? Rain, a lot of rain.
Chris Brooks this preseason, 22 carries, 104 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 4.7 yards per carry average. That's pretty good. That's
a receiving touchdown too, right? Am I wrong? Wasn't there 3 touchdowns total?
Yeah, I think he had 3 total touchdowns. One receiving.
That boy good.
I don't know. It's so hard to get an idea of what Mike McDaniel wants to do with these running backs, right? I mean, last year, Chase Edmonds was a starter for 4 weeks and then he disappeared and we haven't talked about him all off season, right? That's how quickly things can change here. And I'm so surprised they kept all those running backs, man. I am beyond surprised that Chris Brooks made this active roster.
How quickly things change here. We go from Jonathan Taylor to talking about Chris Brooks, right? I mean, that's how quickly things change around here.
He's our savior. I'll tell you what, if Chris Brooks is active for one game, at least through the first 4 games, that's more than Jonathan Taylor will be.
That's a statement to close on right there, man. How poetic. Guys, how does it feel when we're doing this next week? I'm only working on a 3-day week, which is a nice bonus. We will be gearing up for Chargers Dolphins. Can you believe it? We finally made it. Josh is already like, Jesus, how can we do more content than we're already doing?
No, I just realized that we got Herbert and Tua right around the corner, and that's
I'm so scared.
I'm
so scared.
Man. I mean, if the Chargers win that game, they could both throw for 400 yards, but that's all we'd hear, and I'm not ready for that. But yeah, football right around the corner, baby. Woo, fins up.
I'm terrified. I just want this team to be good so badly.
Please, baby Jesus.
Prayers is the best way to end this. For another Dolphins podcast, Joshua Houtz, Marek Brave, thank you both so much for joining me. Everyone out there, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back soon with some more Dolphins content, but until then, fins up.
Fins up, baby.
Fins up.